Hello and welcome to the Construction Record Podcast. I'm digital media Warren Fry. On this episode of the podcast, Daily Commercial News staff writer Angela Gismondi looks at the current state of the labor market in Atlantic Canada. She spoke with Construction Association of Prince Edward Island General Manager Stanley Sanderson about the challenges faced by the industry that resonate around the country, such as shifting attitudes towards the trades, as well as labor shortage issues inherent to PEI. Angela also spoke to ConstructConnect Chief Economist Alex Carrick about Atlantic Canada from an economic perspective. Finally, Angela talked to Duncan Williams, the President and CEO of the Construction Association of Nova Scotia, about housing and immigration. But first, here's the latest headlines from the Daily Commercial News and the Journal of Commerce. In the East, Angela has a story about Graham Construction's work on the Lawson Centre for Sustainability, a $117 million, four-story hybrid mass timber and concrete structure that will add additional space to Trinity College, as well as be a sustainable facility for generations to come. The center is located on the University of Toronto's St. George campus, and the building is targeting LEED Platinum certification and the Canada Green Building Council's Zero Carbon Building Standard. A local energy efficiency program has been launched for Ottawa businesses. The Independent Electricity System Operator is launching Save on Energy's Biz Energy Saver in Ottawa to help industrial, commercial, institutional, and multi-unit residential building owners and operators make equipment improvements that increase energy efficiency and reduce energy consumption. The program, delivered in collaboration with Hydro Ottawa and Hydro One, addresses local electricity system constraints in Ottawa by offering eligible participants free energy assessments and instant discounts on installations of common area lighting system upgrades, variable frequency drives, and parking garage exhaust fan controls. We also have our latest Insurance Essentials column, where Zen Insurance's Aharsan Dangaransa gives liability risk mitigation tips for electrical contractors. From the west, ground has been broken on a second hospital in Surrey, BC, as well as a new cancer center, and the Burnaby Hospital project has entered phase 2 and will also add a new cancer center along with a new tower. We also have another story from Angela about the Canadian Wood Construction Research Network's major initiative, which is the Natural Sciences and Engineering Research Council of Canada Alliance Grant Next Generation Wood Construction Research Program. The goal of the program is to generate technical information that supports the use of mass timber products beyond traditional low-rise construction in tall and large structures. Also, I have a story about how B&B Contracting in Surrey, BC and Leuna Local 1611 were able to train high school students right after graduation, so they have a fast track into the construction industry. You could also listen to an interview with Leona Local 1611 Training Plan Administrator Tom Miller and B&B Contracting Group Operations Manager Peter Mihalek about the program on episode 301 of the podcast. That's it for the news, but up next, here's Angela's interviews with Sam Sanderson, the General Manager of the Construction Association of PEI, ConstructConnect Chief Economist Alex Carrick, and Duncan Williams, the President and CEO of the Construction Association of Nova Scotia. Enjoy.
So how's everything going? Are things busy, picking up after the summer?
Well, there was no slowdown by any means. The construction industry in Prince Edward Island continues to be alive and very, very well, and there's been no slowdown for a number of years, and there's no indication of any slowdown for years ahead.
Yeah, well, we saw an article actually, some mainstream media talking about, the labor shortage, and we always focus, when we're writing stories on it, I've done a ton of stories on it recently, but we're always focusing either in Ontario or sister papers located in BC, but we wanted to get kind of a perspective in, Atlantic Canada. So wondering if you could kind of, start at the beginning, and when did this become, a serious issue?
Well, I actually started talking about, the shortage of trades in 2017, I believe was the first media release I had with CBC here locally around the shortage of trades, and we better start preparing and that for our future and stuff. And it's just escalated, substantially since then. Now we're seeing it, as we've seen in the last, 9 to 12 months, that every other sector is really being vocal about, their own needs as well. So.
Right. So what do you think is the main issue that's causing this?
Well, there certainly are a number of issues, and from my perspective, looking at it, 40 years ago, we had about 3.7 children per household. Now we have 1.3. It now takes 1.5 people to do, a similar job as one person did 5 years ago, around that whole work-life balance thing. And not saying it's a bad thing by any means, but also, too, for a long time, we didn't focus on the trades. We weren't driving our youth to the trades. We weren't encouraging people to go to the trades. And, not that many years ago, and there's still, situations right now where, you were considered to be a second-class citizen if you were in the trade sector, or you weren't smart enough to go anywhere else but to the trades, over the years and stuff. So there's lots of challenges. There has been lots of challenges, and we're just starting to realize that, that career in the trades or job in the trades is a lifelong career, and some of our biggest leaders in our communities are people in the construction industry.
Okay. Where are you seeing the biggest labor shortage issues? Is it, residential sector, ICI, bigger infrastructure projects? Where or just kind of all across the board?
Every aspect of the construction is facing huge labor challenges, residential, commercial, heavy civil, all of the above. We're seeing employers here in Atlantic Canada, really feeling the pinch around all avenues, but not only on the the trade side and the labor side, but also, too, we're seeing it on the engineering side and the architectural world, the whole consultant world. They're facing challenges as well around, enough people to get the jobs done. Right. Not only now, but for our future.
Wow. I didn't realize that as well.
Yeah, no, for sure.
And so when, you've had, I guess after COVID or during COVID and then after COVID, you've had an influx of people moving to the province. How would you say that's affected things and, things like housing and housing affordability?
Well, I mean, PEI, early on in COVID became, one of the safest places in the world to live. So we've seen, a big migration to PEI and other parts of Atlantic Canada, but PEI especially. So all of a sudden, it's such a safe place had an impact on the labor force, on housing and stuff. But then again, we also have led the country for numerous years in a row around our population growth, with international immigration.
Right. So I think I saw, do you have any numbers as to, how many houses do you need to build to meet the growing demands or the growing population, and how many workers would you need to build those houses? Do you have those numbers offhand?
Well, I did a CBC story last Friday, and that ruffled a few feathers, the numbers that we were hearing up until last week were somewhere in the vicinity of about 2,000 units a year were needed to meet our growing population right now. The reporter with CBC came back to me and said, according to their calculations, that 3,300 homes were needed. With us, in a area that has a province that has a population of 180,000, which has grown faster than they actually anticipated, and our future growth is greater than they actually anticipated. So they were looking at numbers around 3,100 based on per capita and the growth and stuff. So there's certainly a huge need. Does industry have the capacity to do it? Not right now. We don't. 2021 was the biggest year ever in the history of construction in PEI, and we've seen about I think around 1,290 units built. And that's a variety of, apartments, townhouses, single family dwellings and stuff. So, we're hard pressed to, to build much more than that with what we have as far as skilled tradespeople.
Okay. And for solutions, your members, are you looking into different things, just, maybe technologies, automation, modular, prefab, that kind of thing?
Yeah, so I like to think CAPEI has been a bit of a leader here around some of those areas. And had the pleasure of Dawn doing a couple of stories on some of our initiatives around, we built a training center a couple of years ago. We've developed our own international recruitment platform for the construction industry. We've turned around and, working with various demographics and underrepresented groups. And then just recently, this year we started building tiny homes to help train new entrants into the industry, along with combating climate change and affordable housing. So, just win-win-win all the way around.
Yeah, that sounds great. Okay, good. I think that is all my questions, unless I missed anything or you had anything else to add.
Well, like you say, today we just need to really think outside the box. We need to create opportunities for anybody and everybody, but we also have a whole demographics of people that we can retrain and people who've never been in the industry, youth with barriers, youth with, youth at risk, corrections and things like that we could really be creative and innovative and finding new ways to get those individuals into the trades to help build, more schools, more hospitals, more homes.
Okay, perfect. Thanks so much for your time. Really appreciate it.
Thanks. Always a pleasure.
Canada's population is growing way faster than the United States. Everybody used to think, or people still are carrying around the idea that the population of Canada is 1/10 the United States. Like that's kind of a rule of thumb that you've heard that, right? That the population of the United States is 10 times larger than Canada. We have been growing so fast that the population of the United States is now 8.3 times higher than Canada. It's reduced that much from 10 to 1 to 8.3 to 1. And that's still sizable. But that's really a big change when you're talking about kinds of numbers we're talking about. And Canada's population has gone up over 40 million. And I remember 5 years ago thinking it would reach 40 million in about 10 years. Well, we've gotten there in 5 years. And then, of course, there's this thing where the bank of the CIBC, I think, Ben Jestron, came up with his thoughts that there's actually 1 million more non-permanent residents in Canada than Statistics Canada is even calculating. I mean, you must have seen that story, right? Where actually the figure in Canada is 1 million higher than Statistics Canada is saying. So maybe even higher than 40, maybe like 41 million. And this has huge implications for Canada. And the thing in the United States that's really categorizing or really changing everything is the move to energy energy transition that's going on, where everybody's trying to get off fossil fuels. And we've been on fossil fuels for 300 years. And now we're trying to get off fossil fuels within a couple of decades, by 2050. And so there's all these mega projects. And that's why you've got, like the car companies have suddenly gotten serious about this. They're building these giant EV and BEV car plants and battery plants. And then there's these big computer chip making plants. Like there's like 10 or a dozen of these things at $20 to $40 billion each. And Canada's getting some of this work, but we're not getting it all. But the Atlantic is going to get some of this work, like LNG facilities or something. There's going to be something dramatic that happens. And in fact, I think the Atlantic is one of the projects that they're really looking at is a big hydrogen plant, hydrogen production plant. So this whole thing about energy transition, that's accounting for mega projects across the country. And the Atlantic Canada won't be left out of this.
Do you have any opinions about what can be done, in terms of getting more labor to build these houses? I know the interest rate thing is a separate thing, but
There's changes coming in the industry. The industry has been slow to adapt
yeah.
technology, but suddenly, and everybody's talked about this for quite some time, they're going to just have to start doing things like modular and so on. If there isn't labor to build things, management is going to be forced. I mean, the traditional answer is that you've got to have automation in some ways, wherever you can automate, wherever you can cut down. And I don't know why another traditional way is to bring people from other regions or to bring in immigrants. Immigration's already through the roof. You try to keep lobbying government to bring in trades that are useful. You try to target certain particular job categories, and the construction industries has traditionally been pretty good at doing that sort of thing, being able to lobby with government. And in fact, even in the latest revisions to immigration policy, trades is recognized as one of those preferred immigrant categories. The reality really seems to be that you got to try it, because how do you replace carpenters on the site unless you do things like 3D printing, or you do automation, or you try and hope that this artificial intelligence will tell you what to do and send out a whole bunch of robots to do it all for you. I don't know that there's really any particularly easy answer to the whole thing.
Okay, good. Anything else to add?
No, but except that what has gone on in the pandemic, it's changed what people want from work anymore. That's part of it. Like, I think a lot of people have figured out that they really don't want to just be working all the time, that they want to have a better work-life balance, and that they can do that they really can work remotely, off-site or whatever. And there's other parts of the country where the whole lifestyle may be better than what they're getting right now in terms of being able to lower cost of living, and looking out your window at the ocean or something, or looking at a beautiful river that runs through your property. And there's a lot to be said for that. So I would think that the Atlantic and other parts of Canada are going to benefit from this.
Labor shortages are a big issue across, well, in Ontario and across Canada as well. But a lot of the stories that we were doing were focusing, more in Ontario and BC, where our papers are located. We wanted to take a look at what's going on in Atlantic Canada right now. Right. So if you can maybe, start at the beginning, tell me a little bit about, when you started really feeling this labor shortage and what's going on exactly.
Yeah, honestly, I think it really started to become what I would say acute approaching a chronic would have been around the middle of the 2021, 2022 within COVID, because we were seeing projects increase, the number of major projects increase, and through COVID, and I don't have hard numbers on this, but I'm just using some common sense. There was, a certain amount of people that retired because, I'm 52, whatever, and I could go home and get whatever, the CERB or whatever it was for a year. Mm-hmm. Some people tapped out there. I can't tell you whether it was 50 or 100 or 500. I don't know, but it was a factor. Immigration slowed to a trickle. That impacted us. Natural new entrants into the market slowed as well through COVID dramatically, whether it's completion of the apprenticeship program, getting the blocks done, whether it was at the pre-apprenticeship level. All of those things slowed. And on top of that, throw in the fact that construction was booming, right? And we had then What I don't think anybody really anticipated was Nova Scotia became a real safe haven destination. So what I mean by that is, some of the folks that were in Toronto living in a condo on Bay Street said, I don't like the idea of being trapped up here and it taking an hour for me to get out of my own building now because of COVID. I need to breathe. So all of a sudden, Nova Scotia became very attractive. We had a housing supply that quickly got gobbled up. And then, of course, with all of the newer projects that are coming, it's only magnified this problem even more so. So I think that's in a nutshell where it started and where we are today. It's a unique situation because if you go back, 10 years ago, I sat on a committee that worked with the province on our population. It was called out-migration. And the population is declining. What are we going to do to retain people? We've got a situation now where we've had 65,000 net new people move into the province, which we haven't seen in a very long time.
Right.
So over and above, the labor shortage, there's also a growing shortage based on we need more housing, we need more infrastructure, we need more schools, we need all the things that go to support a growing community.
Right, all that infrastructure. So are you noticing the labor shortage in certain areas more than other, like residential or commercial, or is it hurting certain types of infrastructure?
Yeah, in some parts of the province, it ebbs and flows. It's a little bit more pronounced than it would have been a few years ago. One project starts, and you've got a trade that's in high demand and acutely short, and that eases in 3, 4, 6 months when they're done. This is the first time, I think, in general, though, we do have a genuine labor shortage. There are certain trades in surplus, but then quickly diminish again. But again, that's right. The big picture challenge is there's enough projected work and demand for housing, whether it's single family, duplexes, or multi-res. All of those trades are in high demand and in short supply. That's a given. The commercial sector is still very strong. The industrial sector has taken a bit of a dip, but it's going to rapidly ramp up. Within the next 6 months, it's going to just blow up, to be honest. We've got some major with hydrogen, wind farms, electrification, those big projects that are coming that are going to require 3,000, 4,000, 5,000 people on some of those projects each. Those are going to be the big ones.
Before we go, I'd like to highlight a few recent economic articles we run on the Daily Commercial News and Journal of Commerce. Economist John Klinkert looks at how while Canada is welcoming more international immigrants than ever before, it may be imperiling the goal of improving housing affordability. From ConstructConnect, we also have a look at the top 10 major upcoming educational and medical construction projects in Canada for September 2023, as well as the top 10 major upcoming Midwest and Northwest construction projects in the U.S. for the same time period. You can listen to us on Amazon Music, Apple Music, and Spotify, as well as on Daily Commercial News and Journal of Commerce websites. Thanks again for listening.